Today we're going to show you everything you need to know to lift your Polaris Pro R with the AGM Electric Jack Pro. I'm Bryan with AGM, and this is how you lift it, where we test real vehicles and real situations to show you the best way to get the job done, because how you lift it matters. Trust me, we have been there more times than I want to admit. Nothing kills the fun faster than a simple trail fix turning into a whole new list of headaches. But it doesn't have to be that way. We build jacks that can actually help you with real trail problems. So today we're not only going to show you how to lift your Pro R, we're going to show you how to make the whole process less of a hassle, so even a trail repair becomes just another part of the adventure. Let's get into it. So we'll start up front, but first things first, 2 quick notes about safety. 1, if your car is drivable, try to get it to a flat or a flat-ish spot like we have here. We're trying to not park on any bushes or rocks, boulders, water, mud, and we're doing this just to make it a little bit easier to work on the car and also safer, because the flatter it is, the less chance it is for the car to tip off the jack. On that topic, the second thing is if the car is on the jack for an extended period of time, we want to try to use spare tires, ice chests, toolboxes, rocks, boulders, trees, whatever you got in the area to try to create a second point of contact, kind of a jack stand as it were. These 2 points of contact are going to make the lift a little bit more stable and also less likely to fall if you're kind of having to rummage around in the car or do any work that requires jerking on the chassis itself. So with that said, let's get into it. So as we bring the jack in here, there's a couple points that we want to kind of take note of first. We want to be on the center line of the shock or out towards the wheel. And the reason is this part of the arm is actually flatter than when you get inside the shock. We want to stay on this flatter area, a little bit closer to parallel to the ground. That way it's less likely for the pad, which we'll be using for the lift, to slip off. So we'll get this in underneath the car. We'll adjust so that we come up to the bottom of the arm. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to have the bottom of the jack in or further away from me than the top of the jack. So as I sit here, the top of the jack is a few inches out from the bottom. The reason we do that is as you lift the car, it's going to lift away from us so that when we're in the up or the working position, the jack is vertical. Now, if we started where the center line of this bolt was perfectly underneath the center line of the top of the jack, by the time we got up or lifted to that working position, the top of the jack's going to be tilted forward, and it's going to be making this pad kind of more into a ramp, which is more likely that the car slides off. So this is a little bit more secure spot. We've got it tilted in now. The next thing we're going to do is grab a couple points of contact. So the pad's going to touch the arm, and we have the jack touching on both the upper and lower arms. These multiple points of contact will also help stability. So and you can see now it's up, wheels off the ground, and because we have those multiple points of contact, we're fairly stable. Now, if your car has a lot of ground clearance, putting your lower control arms at a steep angle, or you're just not comfortable lifting from the lower control arm, we also sell a combo hook. And what you can do with this combo hook is actually trade out a few of the pieces, install this pin attachment, and with the pin attachment, we're now going to be able to lift from this factory hole on the side of the car. So we'll get this guy out of the way. Bring this over. Adjust the height. And just like we did up front, we're going to make sure that the center line on this bolt is further in or further away from me, and the top of the jack is towards me, so that as we lift, the jack comes to perfectly vertical. So that is in. And this is actually a perfect time for a quick tip. So if you find that you've lifted the car up, but you're not actually able to get the tire off the ground on that first lift, these cars actually change track width as they lift. They get skinnier. So what you're able to do is at this point, we'll lower the car back down, and because the car is skinnier, the suspension isn't going to allow it to push out just by setting it down. So the car is going to stay partway through the lift. We're going to reposition the collar. We'll be able to go back in with this travel, obviously all the way retracted. We'll start the lift again, and we'll be able to get high enough to get the wheel all the way off the ground. There you go. In the rear, we have a couple options. The first of which is right down here underneath the trailing arm. We'll get this guy in place, adjust the height of the collar to what we think is going to work. Set that in, and again, I'm putting the pad further away from me than the top of the jack, because as we lift, obviously we want the jack to come up to vertical. If we don't put that pad in, we have it towards me in the top end, the jack's going to tilt away from me, which means that the trailing arm could slide off the pad here on the hook that we're going to be using for lifting. So with that guy all the way in, we know we're going to get that point of contact. We're pushing the top of the jack in to touch here on the shock to get our second point of contact, so it's a little more stable. Then we're going to lift. Okay, this seems stable. One thing that you may notice when you're lifting is if you're on uneven ground, you might have to stop here and back off and just flatten the area where the pad is. That way the pad isn't wanting to slide in any one direction, but in this case, it looks like it's staying perfectly flat, so we'll pick it up. And the tire's off the ground. There you go, ready to work. If for some reason you can't lift from the trailing arm, you can come around to the back of the car here and we can try from the upper radius rod. Now we want to lift from here and not from the lower. The reason is it has this high clearance design. This extra angle is going to make it really difficult to pick up from. So we're going to come in here, see if we can get it off the ground. Get the height right. Again, we're using the pad. I'm going to put a little angle on it this time, so that I'm kind of parallel to that radius rod. Let's see if this helps us. And there you go, we're off the ground. We're able to do the work on the tire. So as you can see, it's all about angles. In this case, we had to rotate the jack so that the pivot on the pad was not perfectly in line with the vehicle, but by doing this, the jack is now able to lift more parallel to the radius rod. So if it doesn't lift for you right away, sometimes playing with these angles is going to help. Now, if you can't get it to lift at all, but you have aftermarket bumpers, side skirts, or other things, the Electric Jack Pro also has a V-groove on the top cap, and this is a perfectly good place to lift from if you're doing repairs along the trail. Now let's put it all together and see what a tire change looks like. So remember, again, we're going to bring this in, adjust our height. Bottom of the jack goes in further than the top. We have our 2 points of contact. Now, you'll notice that I caught all the lug nuts. The reason that I'm doing that is we don't want any of them to fall into the sand for 2 reasons. 1, you could lose them, that'd be bad. And 2, when they fall into the sand, the dirt is gonna get inside here in the female thread. When you go to put that back on, there's a chance that that thread is gonna gall with the sand in there between the male and female threads. Replacing studs sucks. Do yourself a favor, hold on to them. Now, if one does fall in the sand, not the end of the world. Just dump the guy out, do the old, and you are probably good to go. I'm gonna stick those in my back pocket. We'll take this guy off and get a new tire. Back on, all 5 studs lined up. And then what I'm gonna do here is start them all by hand. Again, this is to make sure that we are nice to the studs. If we were to start these with the impact gun, there is a high likelihood that we would cross thread one. Like I said a minute ago, replacing studs sucks. Spend the extra 15 seconds doing by hand. Now that I've got all these on, I'm gonna use a star pattern or a cross pattern as I tighten. The reason that I wanna do that is by pushing on either side of the hub, I am gonna ensure that this sits perfectly flat against the rotor. Now, if I was to do this in a circle pattern, because these guys are on the same side, I'd be hitting them one after another. There's a chance that I could load this side of the wheel up against the rotor first. If this had a hub or a centering ring in here, I could potentially kind of wedge this at an angle against that. Now, I wouldn't notice that right away. I'd be able to tighten the rest of these, but as soon as I started driving, this wheel would start to center itself, and then all these lug nuts would come loose and the wheel would fall off. So again, take the extra couple seconds, use the cross pattern. And then for me, I like to do one more pass around them just in case, make sure I got everything, that I know it's all snug. That way it stays out of my mind for the rest of the trip. And there it is. Let's lower the jack down. And get back on the trail. And that's everything you need to know for lifting your Polaris Pro R with the AGM Electric Jack Pro. All the lifts we demonstrated today had one goal, and that's making trail repair safer and easier, because how you lift it matters. I'm Bryan with AGM, and this is how you lift it. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.